Zindagi Matters, special edition on mental health and human rights. Supported by Taiwan Foundation for Democracy.
Hello and welcome to Zindagi Matters with your host, Geeta Lal Sahai. And our guest today is a person who somewhere sometime wrote, and I quote, "When you grow up with a bipolar parent, cousins don't come over to play. Friends never drop by. Your home becomes a place to be avoided. The feeling has never left me. I can never relax completely in my own home. The alarm bell rings incessantly." Unquote. Heartbreaking, right? And that person is sitting right in front of me. She's an author and is living with bipolar herself now. Welcome to Zindagi Matters, Shubha Menon.
Hi Geeta, I'm happy to be here.
Such powerful words, Shubha, and heartbreaking too, as I said. But who are you referring to?
I'm referring to my mother. My mother was severely bipolar. She's passed away some years ago. But through her life, she was bizarrely bipolar, Her highs and lows were, you cannot even imagine how bad they were. So yes, I had to grow up with that.
How old were you at that point when you realize that your mother is living with bipolar?
Actually, right from, as far as my memory goes, she was unwell, So I must have been 3 years old. From that time, I can remember her behavior, which was bizarre. And one day,
Just sorry to interrupt. When you say bizarre, what do you mean by that?
well, she, for instance, you see, she would go through depression, and her depression would not be just an ordinary sadness which would last for days, but much worse. Like when she was depressed, she would try and hang herself from the fan. And for days, she would have these bruises on her neck. And I remember watching with fascination as they change color, the bruises from maroon to blue to yellow to pink. The bruises would change color. And when she was manic, she could run away from home. She could sell all her gold jewelry or rather gift it away to anybody like an auto rickshaw man. She could wrench out taps from the wall. She had that kind of strength in her. She used to go to the kitchen and turn it topsy turvy. She would say she's cooking, but she would make biggest mess. Nobody could eat for days after that. So yeah, that it was bizarre behavior.
So, what was the reaction of your father, or your other family members, when they were witnessing this?
See, I'm the youngest of my siblings,
Oh.
so I think we were all affected in various degrees. But I think, yes, we were all pretty frightened of her, but I think because I was the youngest, I was the most frightened of her. Also because the illness progressed. So, when my elder siblings, I have two brothers followed by us three sisters. When my brothers were born, the illness was there, but it would come and go. Like there'd be some bad months and then there'd be some good months also. But by the time I came along, her illness had progressed quite a bit. And then all I saw was the worst of her.
So, who brought you up?
I just grew up. No, that's not really true. I had a very, very loving father. So you were asking me, how did my father take it? My father was immensely patient. I don't know where he got all his patience from, but there was no question of ever, locking her up somewhere or sending her off to an institution. For him, she was his wife and he treated her that way, like a queen. And whatever her behavior, he was uniformly good to her. And yeah, he was really good to her. And so even for us, no one said that your mother is crazy. No one said that your mother has an illness, because nobody knew really those back then. Like, I'm talking about some 70, 80 years ago,
Hmm.
and there was very little knowledge. Like, nobody really had a label for this illness, you know.
Hmm.
And there were psychiatrists, but
Hmm.
the medication had not evolved so much.
Hmm.
So she was on medication, and my father would take her to the doctor regularly. But I think the efficacy was not there, and she was a difficult person to even administer medicine to. So there would be gaps, I'm sure. There would be long gaps and wrong medication, etc. Because, my father, while he did look after her, he had to manage all of us also, right?
Hmm.
And he had to earn also for us.
Hmm.
So I think perhaps somewhere her medication, etc., perhaps was somewhat neglected, you know.
Hmm.
And yeah, so I mean, my father did his best. But beyond a point, I mean, what could he really do?
Hmm. Hmm. So, what is the age difference between you and your eldest brother or your other siblings?
So my eldest brother is 11 years older than I am.
Hmm.
So and then three in the middle at an interval of 3 years, 2 years, 3 years, and then I came along.
Hmm. And you said you, like, at the age of 5, you witnessed it, right?
Yeah, I think even earlier, maybe age of 3, perhaps. I
But
remember,
you won't remember that, Shubha,
no, I
right?
remember, I remember well. I remember when I
Mm-hmm.
was tiny and I was in, kindergarten. And so she would sometimes come with my father to pick me up or to meet the teacher. And
Hmm.
even then, I would be so ashamed of her and so embarrassed, because
Hmm.
everybody else came well dressed and she would come in one absolutely crumpled
Hmm.
sari, and her hair would be all unkempt, and
Hmm.
and all the time she would be frowning. She just
Hmm.
didn't look right. And even then I was like, oh God, my mother is
Hmm.
not like everybody else's mother. Something
Hmm.
is wrong with her, except that I didn't have a name for it,
Hmm.
which I only found out later. Okay, this is an illness. This is a condition called bipolar disorder.
So when, like, the manic episode went away, the depressive episode went away. So
Hmm.
when she was, I mean, quote unquote, normal.
Yeah.
So how was, did she ever remember what she had done? Like, what was her affection or towards you people?
Actually, I can count on my fingertips the times when she was normal,
Oh.
because she was seldom ever normal. She used to switch very quickly between depression and mania. So I just remember little bits of, once I remember I had really bad stomachache in school and I was sent home, and she was there and she was the only person at home and she was so loving. I couldn't believe it. And I even then I was small, but even then I told myself that don't get used to this. This is not what she really is like. So this is only for today. And then another time I remember, when it was one of those rare times she was well for a couple of weeks. And then I remember her as having a conversation with her about my life, marriage, so many things. And she was so progressive in her thinking. And had she been well, she would have made an absolutely lovely mother. But it's just unfortunate that she had this illness.
But it wasn't there earlier. It was discovered after marriage, after you all were born or something, right?
Yes, it was after my eldest brother, the brother after that, when he was born,
Hmm.
then it manifested.
Hmm.
So she must have been in her 20s then.
So is there anybody else also in her side, in your maternal side, like somebody else also has this?
No, she's the one who actually it came into the family with her. She has a sister, even the sister passed away, but her sister was absolutely fine.
Hmm.
And her children were also absolutely fine. I don't know how she had this gene and then we all inherited it.
You said we all, so all of you
So
have it?
yeah, we all have shades of it, you know. So, like I think both my sisters have had depressive episodes. And one of my brothers was alcoholic for the longest time. So he's absolutely fine now, but he was. And the other one also was on medication for bipolar disorder. But later he was able to get off the medication and he's all right. So all of us we all have shades of it.
So, like, who is the carer then for caregiver to you people when you have your maniac episodes and depressive episodes? Who takes care of you people?
Okay, firstly, for some reason, we are lucky that we don't have manic episodes. We are
Hmm.
mostly depressive, though we are very much bipolar.
Hmm.
So, though we are not manic, we go through something called hypomania,
Hmm.
which is a very mild form of mania.
Hmm.
You know, so we do experience that, but that is nothing that, probably no one will even notice unless they know you well and can see the
Hmm.
change in your behavior. Other people will just pass it off as today she's very excited for some reason, that kind of thing. But I've only looked after myself.
Hmm. So you are your own carer?
Yes, I'm my own caregiver. Who is there? My sisters and brothers are older,
Hmm.
and so they are all married. They have their families, children. My sisters got married and went away
Hmm.
to their own home, so I had to take care of myself. I'm used to that.
But how did you manage, Shubha? Like, it's a pretty difficult task.
It is, but when you can't do anything about it, then you just grin and bear it and wait for it to pass because nothing is permanent.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, see, I'll tell you, my bipolar disorder manifested in very, very, very deep depression. And, and initially when I first, after my first episode, I went to a doctor, but he said that he didn't want to start me off with medication. And he said he'll just like try talk therapy on me, which he did, and it didn't help me at all. For 6 months, I went for talk therapy, and I was miserable throughout because it made no difference to me. And only later, when I was put on medication, antidepressants, I got
Hmm.
better. And
Hmm.
then
And how old were you? Sorry to
I was in
interrupt.
no problem. I was in my early 30s. So I
Hmm.
was married and I had my baby also by then. And
Hmm.
then I got this horrible episode, you know.
Hmm.
And so talk therapy didn't work. Antidepressants did work. And I thought, okay, so it was a one time thing. It'll never happen again. And that's what I thought, but it happened again. And then it
Hmm.
happened again. And then the
Hmm.
doctor said that you need to take something which is like something called a mood stabilizer.
Hmm.
You know, so
Hmm.
once I started on mood stabilizers, I
Hmm.
didn't have any major episodes.
Hmm.
Like not even minor episodes, just
Hmm.
very slight dips. So I'm
Hmm.
lucky because I've been totally functional throughout, except
Hmm.
in my early 30s when I had those depressive episodes, and those also perhaps would have got avoided. But I was reluctant to go on to a mood stabilizer. I just felt that no, it won't happen again.
Hmm.
Till it happened 3 4 times, then I had no choice. But
Hmm.
I'm on the mood stabilizer. I suppose I'm going to be on it for life. But
Hmm.
with that, I am a very high functioning bipolar disorder patient.
Hmm.
I have had a career, a full career, and I've written books,
Hmm.
and I've been married. I have a child. I will have a grandchild very soon. So it is not my own bipolar. I don't think has affected me as much as my mother's bipolar.
That's because I think it went undiagnosed for a very long time and medication was not there.
Yes, but her behavior had more of an impact on me
Hmm.
uh, than my own bipolar disorder. That's what I'm trying to say. Like my depressions, when I had them to begin with, they didn't get me so, I mean, of course, they were horrible, unbearable, but I came out of them and, life moved on. And they didn't have that kind of lasting impact on me. But my childhood with my mother, that really had a lasting impact on me, on my personality, on my identity, on my psyche. Because her behavior, yeah.
In what way? In what way did it impact you? And did you ever notice that the society as such stigmatize you or people, the family as such?
Yes, of course, so much stigma. For instance, when my mother was manic, she used to talk a lot. She would, be hoarse and, her throat would be gone because she couldn't stop talking. And her behavior would be really over the top, and she wouldn't know where her clothes are going and whether she's worn her shoes out and gone off to the neighbors, or whether she's worn one shoe and one chappal. She had no idea what is happening, and she was garrulous. And then obviously the neighbors would laugh at her, because of course they were so uncomfortable. Then one way to cover your discomfort is to laugh, So when they would laugh at her, we would feel terrible. I would feel terrible. Like I have this mother who's like a joker for the entire neighborhood, And not only that, she would have these long depressive spells, and she would tell me that she said, you are completely useless. You have absolutely no redeeming features. You're short, you wear specs, you are not good looking, you don't have any brains, nobody will ever marry you. What will happen to you? So day in and day out, she used to drill this into my head. So somewhere then you start believing it also.
Gaslighting.
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah. And like for instance, once I remember she just appeared at my school and she was manic. And she went to all the teachers and she went to the principal and she said, this school of yours is very expensive and I don't want my child studying here. I'm pulling her out. And so from the next day, all the teachers started asking me, when are you going? Which school are you joining? And there was no such thing. My father hadn't pulled me out. And I had to explain to everybody that, no, my mother is ill. That's why she's saying all this. And then people would just laugh that, So yeah, then these things, they get to you. And then even in school, you like stop talking to other children, or you stop raising your hand in class because you don't want the attention to be on you, because it's been on you in a bad way. And
it must have been very terrible for you, Shubha.
Yes, it was absolutely terrible. And these things do have, an impact on you as a person. And, there's so much of fear in me. Now I'm much older, but earlier there was so much fear in me, so much of phobia. And I know where it came from. It came from my mother. It was her, because she frightened the life out of me. I remember once she had this thing. She would come to me randomly and say, come, we'll go to the roof and jump off. And I would, so once when I told her that, no, I'm not going to jump off, she actually threw me down and she pummeled me with her feet, on the chest. Then I was screaming. Then one of my siblings heard and they came running and they pulled her away. But then, I was so frightened of her that I started tiptoeing around the house so that she doesn't know I'm around. Or I'd just stay out of the house and not come in till I just had to, or till my father had come back. I'd just stay outside and play with whoever was available, or just, hang around in the neighborhood, because I couldn't go home because she was there. So I think
all this while when your mother did this, did you people never think of taking her to a hospital and or to any rehabilitative center?
See, in those days there weren't such things. The mental hospitals were they were not like rehab. It was just lock you away you know,
Hmm.
put you with a whole lot of others who were had different illnesses. And I mean, the whole, see, psychiatry itself is a young field.
Hmm.
So it was in 20th century only. Sigmund Freud first started a talk therapy kind of thing.
Hmm.
And so what I'm trying to say is that there were no such kind or gentle or understanding facilities. The
Hmm.
mental hospital was a place to avoid at any cost.
Hmm.
Though I know that she was given electric shocks
Hmm.
several times and they
Hmm.
worked till they stopped working. So for that,
Hmm.
yes, she would go to hospital.
Hmm.
But no, we didn't want to admit. My father was very clear. He was not going to admit her anywhere and just, throw her away somewhere and leave her to other people to, look after her. She would stay at home.
You are listening to Zindagi Matters, special edition podcast on mental health and human rights, supported by Taiwan Foundation for Democracy.
So, in a way, we can say, like when you were saying you were stigmatized, the family was stigmatized.
Yeah,
When you stigmatize, you are making that person lose dignity,
yeah,
you see? And
yeah,
so obviously self-respect. So
yeah,
obviously it's a human right and fundamental rights issue also.
yes.
So how much have we walked positively now in
Hmm.
this 21st century?
See, for me, how stigma has impacted me is that because of stigma, I could never open my mouth and tell anybody that I have a mother who disturbs me, and also when I myself got bipolar disorder, I could not bring myself to tell anybody in my workplace because of the stigma,
Hmm.
or when I have this phobia about flights. I could
Hmm.
not again bring myself to tell the air hostess or anybody that, look, I have bipolar disorder and I
Hmm.
can't fly easily. And then
Hmm.
take somebody's help who would say, okay, no problem, I'll sit next to you, or don't worry,
Hmm.
nothing. I just kept mum. That's how
Hmm.
stigma impacted me. I just kept quiet.
Hmm.
And that's a terrible thing to do, because later on I learned that
Hmm.
there is this psychiatrist called Dr. Edith
Hmm.
Eger. So she says that expression is the opposite of depression.
Hmm.
So if
Hmm.
I had known that, perhaps I would have spoken out and
Hmm.
taken help. But because of the stigma, I've just been kind of, just
Hmm.
mum throughout. But otherwise, one thing that has improved a lot, of course, is the medication and the facilities available to people with mental health
Hmm.
problems. That has, yes, it's like a paradigm shift.
Hmm.
And what I'm reading now is that it's going to become way better and very
Hmm.
soon, because there's so much of development in genetics, that they are going to be able to maybe isolate that gene and then, do something
Hmm.
to it. And
Hmm.
so I think that it's going to be much better.
Hmm.
The only thing, one thing which really bothers me, like when I'd gone to the UK, there
Hmm.
I found out that people who suffer from mental illness, when they go to that NHS and all, they
Hmm.
are given medication for a while. It's like the
Hmm.
medication is there for the crisis, to handle the
Hmm.
crisis, and after that they are just, cured through talk therapy.
Hmm.
Whether it's cognitive behavior therapy or whatever, don't know which
Hmm.
one. But
Hmm.
here in India, I find that once they put you on medication, it's for life.
Yes.
Most people, and only lately has therapy become something that psychiatrists consider
Hmm.
seriously. Because, but say 20 years ago, even 10 years ago, I think the psychiatrists would just be very offhand about therapy.
Hmm.
It's like, okay, if you want to do it, it's like it's an indulgence. It doesn't really help, but yeah, if you want to do it, go do therapy. You know.
Hmm.
So this bothers me, that why should we all, have take medicine for a lifetime? Why isn't therapy become the cure in India? No, that's one thing I think needs to change. And so lately, I think during COVID and after COVID, there was this explosion of mental health help on the
Hmm.
internet. So,
Hmm.
we had this, it's okay to talk to me,
Hmm.
let's talk. Like
Hmm.
everybody was there. And
Hmm.
so it became easier to, not easier, maybe even trendy to have a
Hmm.
mental illness and to be part of some forum where you could air your problems and all. That way, it's a good thing that people are at least talking about mental illness. But I just think that it needs to come out much more into the open.
Hmm.
Like, I'm part of a support group for bipolar disorder.
Hmm.
And there was a chap in our group who said that if his employers find out, and he had a government job, he said
Hmm.
if we were talking about why should or shouldn't tell people that
Hmm.
we have this problem. So
Hmm.
he said that if anybody in my office finds out that I have bipolar disorder, I'll be sacked on the spot.
That's not only in his office, that's everywhere,
That's
Shubha.
everywhere, is it? Hmm.
Yeah.
I don't know. Acha, so maybe I don't have that much of information.
Hmm.
But I mean, they just think if this is the way it is, then how many, because of the stress in corporate jobs, how
Hmm.
many must be suffering, and they are like they're walking wounded. There's no
Hmm.
redressal. So that needs to really change. And the rural, the countryside in India,
Hmm.
there I think it's an explosion happening
Hmm.
because nobody knows anything,
Hmm.
and there is a lot of rubbish, like they tie up people, beat them,
Hmm.
take them to dargahs, and just I mean it's horrible. So there is no awareness, and when I read last, there is something like the ratio of psychiatrists to patients is something like 1 lakh patients have access to one psychiatrist.
Yeah,
So
and people still hesitate in
in going to
taking
the, yeah,
support of psychiatrist or going to a psychiatrist or
yeah,
understanding what psychology is. And
yes,
I'm talking about metropolitan city in India
yes,
and
yes,
not
you're right.
a rural side or countryside I'm talking about, because there, as you said, the situation is quite bad despite what you said.
Hmm.
Uh, there's a booming awareness about mental health, but I think it's just
On
on
the
the surface
surface,
to a
yeah,
certain extent.
yeah, it is only on the surface, and it's sad because people don't even want to find out. So if somebody in the family is unwell and you can tell that this person is very distressed, then also the solutions offered are you wake up early and go for a walk.
Hmm.
Or you go and see a movie with your friends once a week. You don't go out anywhere. That's why you're feeling like this.
Hmm.
Or eat early dinner. All kinds of nonsense. I mean, people don't want to go in that direction. They don't want to
Hmm.
accept that anybody can be unwell in their family. In their family with mental illness is a no. So kind of cover it up rather
Hmm.
than try and understand. That is unfortunate. Yeah. And that then, suicides happen.
Hmm. So, how did you navigate your life, Shubha? Like when you realized, you said in your early 30s, like you realized that you have bipolar.
Yeah.
So, how did you navigate your life in your workplace,
Hmm.
at home,
Hmm.
and in society as such?
Okay, so I didn't really have a choice in terms of. Actually, we that time I had got a transfer. My husband and I moved to Bangalore,
Hmm.
and we had this small child. And my daughter was 3 years old, and
Hmm.
I had never been really ill before that, so I never expected anything. But
Hmm.
perhaps it was this whole new city and not knowing enough people, new workplace, something triggered off this
Hmm.
horrible depression in me that first time. And I didn't really have the luxury of uh, giving up the job or sitting at home. And I had nobody to go to
Hmm.
except for this doctor who gave me talk therapy, but which didn't really help, though he was very kind.
Hmm.
And so I had to look after my daughter.
Hmm.
So I just had to, grit, grin and bear it. So I did that. I would wake up every morning and I would tell myself that it is just, this day will end. And that's how I did it. I would go to work, and I remember being so nervous and
Where were you
so.
working at that
I was
time?
working in an ad agency called Contract.
Lot of competition and creative,
Yeah,
which must have triggered also.
probably. And then it was so bad. I would have so much anxiety. Like if someone came to me with a job and said, I need this ad written out by the evening, it would send my stomach into a complete churn. And then I would go to the bathroom and I would retch. And I couldn't, nothing would come out because I couldn't eat anything. I dropped a lot of weight at that time. And so I would retch and retch and retch, and I couldn't work. And I would tell my colleagues that, I'm not capable of working. And so soon I'll get sacked. And they would keep telling me that, they would laugh and say, are you mad? You're good at your work. What's wrong with you? Just sit and write it. And it was really bad. And I would go home and I would, in front of my daughter, I would, behave as though everything is fine. And she was tiny, but I would play with her. I would go through the motions, feed her, all that. And then when I would get very anxious, I would pull out everything from the cupboard and re-tidy it again. And then I found that if I woke up early, before anybody else woke up, then early in the morning, I could do some work. So I started doing that. I started waking up in the morning, making myself a cup of tea, and then sitting down for an hour or two. I would do the work and then go to office. And that made a lot of difference to me. So I somehow managed. And then after some months, my in-laws said that they are coming to Bangalore to just be with us. And suddenly all of that depression just fell off. So probably I was just feeling very pressurized by the new circumstances. But that's how I
Maybe you
managed.
were frightened that they will come to know of your illness.
Maybe that too. Yeah, I know. But I mean, I've always gone to the doctor on my own. I've done all my blood tests on my own. I've been to the therapy sessions on my own. And I think it's made me a good, strong person. So, I mean, I don't need anybody to really help me cope.
So
Rather,
how was your husband? What was your husband's reaction when he noticed these changes in you?
so he was really nice about it, I must say. He was with me through and through. And never once did he say that, what is wrong with you and all, nothing. He said, you're not well and the medication will start working and you'll be fine. So don't worry about it. I'm
But
there with
he
you.
understood that
He
you have
understood.
bipolar.
Yes, he understood. So that was a real blessing. But I'm like I said, I'm used to looking after myself. And I think it comes from the fact that I didn't have a mother to look after me. And so I learned how to look after myself, and that's the way it stayed. And now if somebody tries to look after me, I'm very uncomfortable with it. But, another thing which really helped me is that when I was about 40 or so, and I had been through these depressive episodes, and in some ways they also really impacted my whole life.
Sorry, how old are you right now? 60s?
I'm 62.
Okay.
So, what happens is you go through a depressive episode, you're not able to work, you're not able to perform in office, and your confidence takes a backseat because you've not been able to deliver, and other people have got the increments and the promotions, and you've got left behind, and you don't know when you will be depressed again, and again you will not be able to do your work. So it does things to you, Sorry, I lost the thread somewhere. Yeah. So so when I was around 40 or so, I encountered Buddhism, and that actually really sorted me out. So because of Buddhism, I was able to, the main thing Buddhism did for me that was that it, I could forgive my mother because I really blamed her for all my problems. And then Buddhism said that you cannot blame anybody. Whatever's happening to you is caused by you. And so many things, which I kept learning in Buddhism. My entire feelings towards her changed. And instead of seeing her as this monster, the way and I'd always seen her as this monster, I could see her as this really suffering creature who never had a day of peace and who was not at fault. It was just the illness making her behave that way. And I was able to throw off all that resentment. And I then became her chief caregiver after that, till she passed. So that Buddhism, I'm very grateful to Buddhism for that. Yeah.
So what, according to you, is the best initiative for promoting the inclusivity in society, in education, employment, housing, community support system for people living with the mental illness?
So we could take a leaf out of other countries who do a really good job. Like, I'm aware, I did a course last year, or was it the year before that? There is a course, run by the Depression and Bipolar Alliance, which is, you do the course and you become a peer support specialist. So you use your own life experiences to help others who are in a similar position. So while I was doing that, I felt like really weird because everybody was American except me. But at least if they were not American, they had lived in America or were living in America. And there, if you click on any city, you'll find like at least 200 mental health, kind of facilities you can go to or talk to somebody or something online. So much access. And in India, there is practically nothing which works. So, and then, there are things like in the building, if you need an assistance a pet, you have the right to, if the landlord refuses, you have the right to tell the authorities who will then make him let you, he will have to allow you. So there are so many ways in which they are helping their mentally ill people. In India, we are not helping them at all. So I would say that education and awareness of mental health should start from school. Especially now, post-COVID, everybody's experienced shades of mental illness here and there, depression, paranoia, all that. So, and instead of forgetting that and understanding that, I am also vulnerable. Anybody can be vulnerable. And then educating ourselves, making ourselves aware and understanding, okay, what can I do about this? Or what can I do to help someone who needs me? That has to be there from day one. I think it should be mandatory. Everybody in every school, college, should know that. I remember once I had gone to the doctor, and there were people waiting outside, and there was this young woman who was there, and she was extremely flirtatious, and she would keep going up to the men and nudging them and laugh seductively, and obviously the men were then coming on to her, and she was okay looking but very rural. You could make out she's come from some village, and her parents were with her, and then the father just told her twice or thrice. He dragged her back, that what are you doing in his own language. He was telling her something, basically threatening her that don't do this. But that girl, which was like seemingly couldn't help it. She was just going on, just going to the boys. And then, that man, he was so angry. He caught her, dragged her by the hair and gave her a big thrashing, there only in front of everybody. I was looking with complete shock, and I knew that this girl is bipolar. She's going through mania, and he's beating her. What worse? So, when you talk about rights and all, first there has to be some awareness and understanding. Otherwise, so that this is the problem, that man had no idea. And so that girl was being beaten up in public with everybody laughing and people like me, weeping because it was horrible. But this is the way things are in India. And people need to learn. Every office must have, a caregiver person, so that, and in confidence you can go to her or him and talk.
You mean to say counselor?
Yeah, counselor. Every office should have, and everybody should, have these talks. People like me can go and talk and at least talk about mental illness. No, there must be so many like me. So this awareness has to happen on a war footing. Can I just tell you one more thing? There is no insurance. There is no insurance if you're mentally ill.
Yes.
In my whole support group, nobody has insurance. Everybody's tried hard, but no, you can't get through the red tape.
You can't. It's very difficult. And again, that's again the right issue. It's a matter of one's rights.
Yes, so it is. If a diabetic has rights, if a heart patient has rights, then why can't a bipolar patient have rights?
Yes.
It's as simple as that. Why discriminate like this? It's just a different part of the body. It's something's happening in my brain. For the heart patient, it's in the heart. Why am I being singled out like this to be made fun of and not being provided any care?
Thank you, Shubha, for sharing your views and giving really some insightful thoughts to think about.
Thank you.
So thanks a lot, Shubha, for joining me.
Yeah. All right. Bye, Geeta.
Thank you.
Bye.
You were listening to Zindagi Matters, special edition on mental health and human rights, supported by Taiwan Foundation for Democracy.